Go ahead, take us in, Grant. I'm not recording that.
We are.
Yeah. Are we?
Is my right. Welcome to Bones, Twigs and Wigs,
Baby.
the podcast about music. Sometimes.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to Bones, Twigs and Wigs, the podcast about music. Sometimes. We're back here with a very special episode of Vinyl Impressions for you all, because it's one of the very rare times that we'll ever experience where we actually have the artist in question here to talk about their album. Very exciting. We have as a very special guest today, a real mentor of mine and a real OG from the golden era, really, of hip hop. A member of the Executioners, for all you DJs and DJ aficionados out there. He's worked with such jazz greats as Bob James and Herbie Hancock, for all you jazz musicians like me out there. And because Vinyl Impressions is my favorite thing to do, because I get to pretend like I'm David Letterman and hold up the record. This gentleman has actually performed for David Letterman. How cool is that?
Pretty
Ladies and
dope.
gentlemen, DJ Rob Swift, aka Brolic Arm.
Look at that. Ripped.
Biceps.
I left mine at home, man. Mine are somewhere else. I left them in the back there.
Yeah, mine's just like hidden in this black hoodie. You know, black just makes you look fat, so you know how that goes.
Welcome. Thank you very much for being here, man.
Thank you, man.
I look forward to talking to you guys, man. This is awesome to be able to sit here in Antigua, and you guys are scattered about the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And we're going to chat about DJing, so this is cool.
We were just talking about the Bahamas, weren't we?
Yeah, so
Johnny, yeah.
Rob, I have family in the Bahamas, man, and you know, the Bahamas, they just shut down their borders. And it's funny, man. Yeah. So it's funny because I was actually planning on going over there on the 19th, and I was going to stay for about 2-3 weeks because, you know, it's really nothing here popping, and I was just going to stay with the folks or whatever. And yeah, man, as soon as I was getting ready, had the tickets and everything ready, they were like, nope. No commercial flights. We shutting it down. So, you know, we were kind of talking about just like the whole pandemic, how things started to open up. Now they're starting to close back because cases are starting to rise. So it's crazy.
Insane, man. Who would have thought that 2020 would end up being this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like how I ended up here in Antigua was kind of crazy too. So my girlfriend lives in London and she went back home to visit with family first week of June. And while she was there, she realized through researching how to get back and re-enter the country, that in order for her to be allowed in New York City again, she was going to have to quarantine here in Antigua for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Dang.
So that's why I'm here. You know, obviously it turned out to be like a fun vacation, and we're on the beach and we're eating well and all that. And enjoying each other's company, but how we ended up here is crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He had to come here and stay here for 14 days before immigration would let her back into the country.
So when you go back to the States, she won't have to quarantine in the States then?
I'm hoping no. I guess we'll see. Yeah, we'll see if she will have to quarantine. But like the important thing for us is just for her to be able to re-enter the country.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
She and I have like a lot of cool stuff going on. You know, we DJ together. Mm-hmm. We do a lot of projects together. So we're just looking forward to being based again in New York City and having our equipment in front of each other and just getting creative.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, we're here, you know, enjoying this, and we kind of turned it into a little vacation. But yeah, it's really crazy, man. Like you go out to eat and your temperature's being taken and you're asked to wear a mask, and yeah, it's just nuts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This invisible virus, all the fucking like the change that's happened because of that, like how we deal with each other and approach just regular things like going out to eat.
Yeah. Right. And there's definitely going to be parts of that stay. You know, there's certain elements of this that are going to stay forever. Which is not a bad thing for things like personal space. Some people don't understand that, so that's okay. But yeah, I mean, that's hopefully one of the good things that might come out of this.
It's funny because I follow somebody on Instagram. They're from New Orleans. And they just started this company, like this sanitation company, where they go into these restaurants and they got the whole suit with the whole like Ghostbusters, backpack with the sanitizer, and they're like spraying down, like, so, they'll do it, I guess, like at the end of like a closing night, and they spray down every single thing. Like they'll go to like a liquor store, spray down all the bottles, spray down, they'll go to a restaurant, spray down all of the booths and chairs, and they're making hella money off of that, bro. You know what I'm saying? Because of the time. And it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, even when things do start to open back up, we're going to be so scared. Business owners are going to be so scared because when things open back up and, we go back to normal, people are still going to be keeping those same habits of sanitizing, spraying Lysol all the time and stuff like that. So this is, hopefully this brings about a change for the years to come, in the way that us, as humans, how we behave and how we act while we're out, So.
Well, it's definitely going to be a new normal,
Definitely. It's going to be a new norm, man.
Wash your goddamn hands and stop eating bats.
Seriously.
And Rob was you were right in kind of the epicenter of where it was all going down in New York, right?
I was. So I live in Jackson Heights, Queens, and Elmhurst Hospital was the worst hit hospital in the country regarding coronavirus cases, and it happens to be the hospital where I was born. Wow. And I live maybe a 10-minute walk, if that, from my apartment. So yeah, man, it was crazy. And like just the fear and the fact that like we were there in the middle of like the epicenter of like the worst pandemic to hit worldwide in I don't know how long. It's just crazy, man. But at the same time, it's also interesting to me how like it's traveled. Like it went from New York City and now it's like Florida and California. So I was just
talking that in Australia too.
Say again? Oh,
it was the same in Australia because it started with Sydney, and I'm down near Melbourne, so I'm at the bottom. So at the start of it, the first wave, I guess, we had Sydney was the hard hit one, and we were doing fine. So we opened up pretty quickly, and now we're getting slammed. It's awful.
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with my girlfriend about that earlier today, and it's just like this sneaky virus, man. And like there's the thought that like if there are certain things that we do as citizens, not go out, quarantine, eventually we could. So some people think at least that eventually, we could wipe out this virus, but it's looking like it's here to stay. And regardless of what you do, we're going to have to just learn how to live with this. And hopefully, a vaccine will come out and, we could take other precautions to not get it. But in the meantime, man, you just have to be careful and watch who you associate with and be responsible too. Like I know in certain states in America, like for example, Ohio, like you could gig out and DJ at bars now. And I'm seeing people post pictures of themselves DJing and that. I don't know. It's just
that's scary. Yeah, it's too soon.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. It's funny because I got a homie. All right, well, number one, I don't know if I'm sure you're familiar with Black Lives Matter Plaza out here in DC. It's on 16th Street right in front of the White House. So that's been like popping lately, and I just went down there for the first time for like this like huge like horn section jam session. It's like tubas and just brass instruments, woodwind instruments. It was super dope. Such a experience. But everybody's like masked up, and then if you're not masked up, you got a horn in your mouth, like pause, what I'm saying? But you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, man, like it was just super dope. Everybody was out there. I was a little nervous. My family was a little nervous, but at the same time, I'm doing it for the cause. We're out there protesting, and I met up funny enough, with one of my old band teachers from like middle school, and he's in Baltimore, Maryland. He had a gig, and I bought some tickets to the gig, and I asked him while he was there. I was like, man, I was actually gonna go to your gig on such and such date or whatever. And he was like, yeah, man, come through, bro. It's only like 50% capacity though. Like they're trying to, like they're not gonna fill up the entire venue. They're just gonna fill up half of the venue. So we're literally selling like half tickets. And I'm like, wow. So then next thing you know, man, I get a post on Instagram from him saying that he postponed the gig. So I'm like, dang, there's $22 down the drain right there. Hopefully, he can reschedule and I can go. But I was looking forward to it, man, because I thought for a second, I was like, okay, well, maybe we're starting to open back up, because I was shocked. I was shocked. And he's like a full-time musician, man. Like that's how he makes his ends. That, and I think he teaches and stuff. But yeah, like, he's not in the school system anymore. You know what I'm saying? So music and just doing live gigs is all he has.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we just all have to hold on and weather the storm, man. And hopefully, whether it's the end of this year or early next year, things will, whatever normal looks like, we'll be able to just work again.
Right.
And
I think there's a panic. People are panicking. They want to go back so soon because, we're all itching to play and perform in front of people and money, etc. But it's been proven, the States, when your country and in England and everywhere, when people go back too early, then they have to shut down again. And this will never stop unless people stop. I know in the States, I mean, there are people here as well, don't get me wrong, but the people who refuse to wear masks and are actually going out on purpose without masks and going into stores and doing all these sort of things, that blows my mind. That to me is so selfish. Whether you agree with the science or not, it's like, you know what, wear a mask. At the very worst, you're wearing a mask. At the best, you're saving someone's life. It just seems so selfish to me. And until everyone gets on the same page, we're never going to gig again, We can keep doing podcasts for the next 2 years. It's fine,
Yeah, it needs to...
It's true.
Hey, I mean, this is the three of us have got a nice little thing going on. This is the most social thing I do.
That's if we can just find a way to turn this into some money, you know what I'm saying? We can work it out. We can work this thing out. You feel me?
We're gonna get the mugs, man.
Yeah, man.
You treat this as an exercise in patience, and it's an interesting way to get creative. One thing. The reason that we're here with Rob today is, in some way due to this pandemic. Like,
facts.
A little personal anecdote. I thought, well, if I'm going to be stuck at home, what have I wanted to do that I now have time to do? I said, I'm going to learn how to actually, get my DJ chops up. And start watching videos and practicing and trying to figure out how I'm going to, go about, find a method to all the madness and all that good stuff. And I come across you, Rob, on YouTube, because you have, for those who don't know, Rob has maybe the coolest and most educational YouTube channel that there is if you're a DJ, because you have not only examples of one-on-one lessons, but you have examples of the classes that you teach, some sort of montage style videos of people doing routines with you voicing over and stuff, like, so you can learn history of it and all this.
Dope.
I was like, man, this guy's fucking dope. And then, I followed you on Instagram, and then I thought, yeah, fuck it, let's see what happens. I messaged you because I saw that you do teach. I went, message you on Instagram. I think maybe 10 minutes later you messaged back.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But I was telling you about this, Johnny. But not only did you message back, but you messaged back with critique straight away. Like you said, oh yeah, I just went and checked you out, and like, it looks like you're heavy-handed, and you and me have talked about this already, but I remember telling Johnny, going, man, you wouldn't believe what he said to me. He came back, he actually went back, he went and watched, and he like gave me some pointers already, and schedule a lesson. So yeah, pandemic's been kind of awesome for me, because I got to, meet you, and
when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, right?
Hell yeah.
Damn right, man.
I think we're making the most of a crappy situation. And for me, speaking for myself, sometimes I feel guilty because although the pandemic has been an issue, with regards to us getting together physically, with regards to creatives like myself performing in front of people and just doing what you normally do with regards to your passion and your creativity. At the same time, I've been able to thrive and increase the amount of students that I've been teaching. And for me, that's awesome because that's what I want. I want to be able to experience myself teaching people, helping people grow, helping people find themselves and discover their voice as DJs. And the pandemic has created a pathway for that on a level that I haven't experienced since I started teaching. And as far as Grant is concerned, dude, you have improved so much in such a short period of time. I think you and I started training when? Was it April or May? Grant?
I think maybe April. Yeah.
April,
April, I think.
Yeah, and
if I'm not mistaken.
In 3 months, man, you turned into this beast. And now I see you post videos and you're composing these routines and you're applying all the stuff that we've been training in the last 3 months. It's been awesome, man. So the pandemic hasn't been all bad either, man. I think there has been some good that's come out of this. And in the case of me teaching and what it's done for my students, I feel like this downtime has been good for people to just go within, train, get better, so that when we're out again in front of people, whether it's competitions or gigging out at venues and clubs, we all kind of we're going to show ourselves in a more improved way, and I feel that's the main thing about the pandemic is people want to take advantage and get better,
right?
With regards to whatever it is that they do, you have this downtime, why not refine your skills? So even me personally, I've been training more. There are some new scratches that I taught myself in the last couple of months that maybe if things were the way they were pre-lockdown, I probably would be too focused on just working and not practicing.
Yeah, right.
I have nothing but time.
Mm-hmm.
Through DJing in the past, have you always had an eye on teaching as well? Or is that something that's just come about recently?
That's a good question. I feel like whenever people ask me that, my answer is this. I feel as though I've pretty much been a teacher of this art since I started learning about it.
Yeah.
Because as a kid, when I would DJ 12, 13 years old, it's not like I was able to DJ at a venue, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm too young to get into a club and DJ for people. So what I would do is I would invite my school friends over to my house and I'd get on my dad's equipment and DJ in front of them, and they were my audience.
Awesome.
And what would always happen is they'd get up from the couch after watching me DJ for a few minutes and then ask me, yo, teach me how to do that. What is it that you just did? Can you teach me? And then I would, get them on the turntables and place their hand on a record and tell them how to move their hand to coax the sounds that I was coaxing out of the turntables and stuff. So it may not have been a formal training that I was engaged in with my I was going to say my students, but they were friends, but I feel like from very early on, I was teaching my friends how to do this. So I don't think I necessarily had the foresight to say I was going to create the Brolic Army and have students all over the world and meet people like Grant that lived in Australia. That wasn't something that I necessarily predicted, but teaching and talking about DJing so that people understood what I was doing is something that I embraced from the very beginning. This art form is amazing, but it's also there's a mystique behind it. You see this person do this stuff on turntables, and it's not like watching someone play the piano or the guitar where it makes sense that this is an instrument. Mm-hmm. The turntable wasn't built to do what we do on turntables. So you see it and it's just like you're watching someone perform magic in a way. So you have to be able to explain what you're doing so that it makes sense to people. Right. And I just always found myself embracing that.
That's dope, man.
You're saying turntable as an instrument. Actually, Johnny, you mentioned that before. I think about the course you were talking about. It's now being recognized.
Yeah, so a couple, I want to say like a few years ago, I'm sure you know Berklee College of Music in Boston. They recognize, turntables as an instrument, like as a musical instrument. So they just started like giving turntable courses up there in Boston, man. And I remember when they first did it, it kind of blew up, to musicians, of course, on like, social media. We're just seeing like a conference table just full of, turntables, and like everybody's got like their tables, and they're just going off like if they're like trading scratches, like trading fours, or, just doing their thing. And I thought that was so dope because, we don't really realize like, how much of an instrument this really is, and how much of an art form, turntabling is, so I think that's super dope. And then, Grant was telling me how, and I do apologize because I haven't checked out your YouTube channel, but I will definitely, because Grant was telling me how, man, like, you have your classes on there, and it's like rooms full of people just, turntabling at the same time. I think that's super dope, super cool. So yeah, man, I really, really think that's just amazing how, it took decades, but now people are starting to recognize that, these turntables, it's a part of the band. You feel me? So I think that's dope.
Like starting off by talking about like the turntable as an instrument is a great way to get into the record as well. The first track is called "Dope on Plastic."
Yeah. It's hard, right? Too.
Yeah, and the first question I had, Rob, was because I have the physical copy, right? And you've got, hang on, see if I can do this. On the back cover here, you've got all these red titles. So you've got the album like sectioned up, kind of, and some of these things seem like I don't know, Johnny. We were talking about what they're called, like
skits.
Skits,
yeah,
or like
skits,
or interludes,
Mm-hmm. Interludes and skits. But some of them also seem kind of like you've like a section of the record falls under this category.
Oh,
do you know what I mean? Is that?
Well, no, I do know what you mean, but I don't necessarily think any of that was intentional. Mm-hmm. Like for me, the Ablist, when I ended up kind of initially putting together the theme behind this project, what inspired it all was my inability to try. I felt like I was unable to try certain things from a creative standpoint as an executioner, because the Executioners had just released an album called Expressions on that same label that put out the Ablist, Asphodel Records. And Asphodel Records was a label based out of the Bay Area, West Coast, San Francisco. And the group landed this independent record contract with this independent label, and we put out this album. And there were things that I felt I wanted to try, but I couldn't because it wasn't necessarily where Raiders' mindset was. It wasn't necessarily where Mr. Sinister's or Total Eclipse's mindset was regarding how to approach the turntable in a recording studio. Mm-hmm. So out of being or feeling frustrated that I couldn't really try these ideas, and on top of that, the Expressions album was such a huge hit and it gained literally worldwide notoriety. A record label by I don't know if you guys are familiar with Rick Rubin, and at the time in the late 90s, he had a record label called Deaf America.
Mm-hmm. Rubin's a legend, man.
Yeah, legendary producer, hip hop icon. Mm-hmm. So the success of Expressions ended up kind of giving Rick Rubin the incentive, not kind of, it did. It gave Rick Rubin the incentive to come catch us at a show in LA. We were performing at a venue there. I believe it was called the Roxy in LA. And he came backstage after we were done performing and was like, I want to take you guys out to lunch tomorrow and sit you down and possibly talk to you about signing to Def America.
Wow.
And sure enough, the next morning after the gig, he took us out to lunch and he's like, I want to sign you guys to my record to a record contract with my record label, and just basically listed everything from A to Z that he was prepared to do for us. So on the one hand, I'm like, okay, musically, Expressions was dope and I had fun putting together this project, but man, linking up with Rick Rubin, I know that he's capable of helping me and the rest of the group really fine tune what we're trying to do as DJs in a recording studio, because the truth is we were all inexperienced recording artists. The only experience that we had being in a recording studio was having a rapper put together a song and then asking us to do scratches in the chorus. But composing a whole song from beginning to end, using the turntable as the main piece of, I guess the main instrument, you know? That's something that I feel for kids that were used to or more comfortable battling, needed help understanding how to approach. And I felt Rick Rubin was that guy. So I was feeling like we weren't really fulfilling our potential. And here came Rick Rubin at the perfect time. And we had promised Asphodel that we were going to record 2 albums with them. We did Expressions, that was one. We were going to follow up with another album, but we never signed paperwork saying that. It was just a verbal promise. So when Rick Rubin came along, we were like, Asphodel, sorry, but Rick Rubin wants to sign us. We're going to go in this direction. Yeah. So we were about to literally start putting together the contract and stipulate everything that we wanted, everything that he wanted to go in the contract. And Sean C., who's an original member of the X-Men and co-founded the X-Men later on became the Executioners, ended up having a job at Loud Records as an A&R. So when he found out that Rick Rubin was going to sign the Executioners, he convinced the group to not do the Rick Rubin deal and go with Loud. So we took a vote on it literally after Rick Rubin came to my house and was pleading with me to figure out a way to convince the other guys to not mess up this deal that we were on the verge of signing with Def America. We took a vote and I was outvoted 3-1. The guys wanted to go with Loud. So then when we went with Loud, I started to realize that the album that I wanted to experience creating wasn't going to happen because the guys were excited about being on a record label with Mobb Deep, Wu-Tang, Big Pun, Exhibit. And they saw that as an avenue to get their rocks off as producers and possibly work with those artists. But I wanted to understand how to be a recording artist and have the turntable be my main instrument. And I felt that it was worth leaving Asphodel if Rick Rubin was going to help us do that. But now that we were going to move into the Loud direction, I went back to Asphodel and I was like, hey, I feel bad that we just left you guys high and dry like that. What if I gave you a solo album? And that's how the Ablist came to be. So to answer your question, like the Ablist wasn't necessarily a project that I sat down and, arranged with regards to the creative scheme, how the artwork was going to look, sonically, what I was going to do. I just wanted to follow through with my commitment to Asphodel Records and give them a second album, even if it wasn't a Executioner's project. And B, the Ablist was all me just experimenting and literally just trying things that I knew I couldn't try as an Executioner.
Yeah. That's what's up, man.
Damn.
I can definitely respect that. You sound like a man of integrity. You know, and I know that's hard. I've been in like, you know, groups where it's like, man, I got to sit here and we got to come up with a vote. And even if you're not feeling it and you get outvoted, it's like, now I got to do something that I really don't want to do. And then, and you got other people on the outside of the group that's involved. So I can definitely respect that, dude. And I'm happy that it worked out like that, because the whole project is fire. It's dope, bro. And it's like, it came out in 99 and it's still hot like today. Like, this is crazy, son, you know? Yeah. So, yeah. Steve, you were going to say something, bro? I'm sorry. I cut you off.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask, like, did you feel any sort of bitterness towards that? Did that come through on the album, or was it all love? Like, obviously, you got outvoted in one section, then you felt like you couldn't do that. So did this feel like an angry sort of outpouring of, do you know what, fuck you? Or was this more like, it's good to have the opportunity to do it, to not have any ties and etc.?
It wasn't the Ablist. When I put it together, there wasn't one day that I spent angry recording, but I do understand the question, and I have felt that before, where you're kind of like, all right, now I'm going to show you guys. Like, it wasn't more, it wasn't that, it was more of a exhaling, like, like, now I get to try these ideas, and like, no one's going to say that doesn't fit the Executioners, or no one's going to say, really, Rob? Like, do you think that's going to work? Or I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. Like, no, it's my project, and I'm the captain of the ship, and the ship's going to go wherever I want it to go. And that's why songs like All That Scratching Is Making Me Rich came together. Like, I wanted to do a song with actual musicians, because I felt that the turntable was a musical instrument. And I wanted to prove that by surrounding myself with a horn player, a guitar player, a bass player, a drummer. Songs like, there's a song on there called I'm Leaving, about a breakup. And I'm rapping on the song.
Oh, is it you? I didn't notice you rapping on that.
Oh, that's you doing it.
That's me. I'm
Hell yeah, dude.
Two of us. It's me and like my best friend since the 6th grade, my boy Good Time. We were both at the time like experiencing like weird breakups, and I was like, yo, let's do a song about like our breakups. Like, and I say that to say, like, I don't think the Executioners would have allowed me to just fucking record a song about a breakup, you know? Right. It was my album, and I could do that, and no one could say no. So the Ablist was interesting because like it was just me trying everything. And like, as a 12-year-old kid, when I started DJing, a lot of people don't know this, but I used to rap. I used to write rhymes. I'd be in the 6th grade in English class. Instead of listening to the teacher, I'd be jotting down rhymes.
Nice.
And then spitting them during lunch, you know, while my friend would be banging on a table. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, there is not a record label on earth that will ever give me a record deal as a rapper, but I have my own record deal as a DJ. I'm going to rhyme on my own album.
Yeah, that's right.
Guess what? Nobody could say, no, you can't, you know? And Asphodel was dope in that way. Like, they would literally give you the advance money and then say, have fun, do whatever you want. Just bring us a project that you're proud of. And here we are talking about this album. And I feel like, although it wasn't necessarily like this, like, I sat down and like schemed the whole project from the artwork to the music. It was more of a free flowing creative process. It in the end came together, from the artwork, from the visuals to what you hear sonically.
How long did it take you guys to complete it to the point where it was actually out?
The Ablist took me, I would say, an entire summer.
Okay, cool.
That's not bad, man.
I probably started working on it like around May or June. And I finished it by like August, by like the end of the summer.
So like just nonstop, just like in the studio, just working on that. That's hard.
And that too, like I'm glad you touched on that. This may go over a lot of people's heads, and I think people today listening to this interview might not appreciate, but you just said in the studio. Mm-hmm. And back then when the Ablist was recorded, you would go to a recording studio and work with an engineer.
Right.
And you'd have an SSL board in front of you. And I'd have to go to this store, which is the equivalent of what Guitar Center is today. Mm-hmm. There's a spot called Sam Ash in Times Square. And you would buy like a 2-inch tape, a reel-to-reel tape, and that shit weighed like a good 20 pounds each. And you'd go to the Sam Ash, buy the tape, and then carry the tape to the studio.
Yeah.
Oh man, I have great memories of putting together the album, and it was definitely a lot of work went into it. Whereas now you record an album from home in your boxers.
Right. Straight up.
But that whole album I was in the studio. All that scratching is making me rich with Dudius, the band that I recorded the song with. Like we were all in the studio. We had our instruments. We're looking at each other. It wasn't like I was sending or emailing files to people in other states. Like we were all in the same room being creative. And that's another reason why I feel like the album has that energy to it, Because I was working with an engineer and understanding, although I didn't get to record an album with Rick Rubin, the process did help me understand what my potential was as a recording artist, because I had the freedom to do whatever I wanted.
There you go. And I really want to touch on the interludes real quick, because right before all of that scratching made me rich, you got an interlude called Brainstorming.
Yeah.
And I dig that interlude so much. Like out of all of the ones on there, I dig that one because you hear different instruments around the room. But then you also hear you talking and you like, yeah, guys, so this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this type of vibe. Make sure on that part right there, boom, boom, boom. And like you said, like you're like the captain of this thing, man. You're running this, you're running the show. And then in between all of this talking, you got people just giving you feedback, like, yeah, boom, boom. And then you might have like a bass player hit a little riff real quick, somebody on keys, or like the drummer hit a like just kind of warming up, and then boom.
Hitting the spit valve.
You know what I'm saying? I was gonna say you can hear it. Boom. Boom, you go straight into the track. So I was like, man, it was so organic and so real. And I personally appreciate that because, I'm like, man, we get so caught up on like all of the studio magic, you know what I'm saying? And there's not a lot of like realness in music nowadays, I mean, music is great. Like the new stuff is cool. The auto tune and everything, I'm getting with it, But every once in a while, man, you got to remember, those times where like you're in the studio and you're just vibing with like live instruments, or you're just vibing with just you and your engineer, all of that realness, man, and getting that on tape, I'm a huge fan of that, because as an artist myself, I'm like, I want to see how this, I want to feel how the artist is feeling while he's recording or while he's creating, you know what I'm saying? So I'm so happy that you put that in there, man.
Yeah, and I'm sure Grant can identify with this because he and I have trained together. I guess I'm listening to you, man, and I'm realizing that I've always been about being transparent about my creative process. And even back then, when I was putting together the Ablist, I don't know what possessed me to record all the sessions. So I would literally, if you listen to it might be the first interlude. Yeah, it has to be the first interlude. I think it's called Day One.
Yep.
Where
the opening of the
my best friend who's on I'm Leaving rapping with me, my boy Dean Gibson, good time. He's like, yo, fuck, Rob, this is all you today. Like, it's all you. Yeah. And, he experienced my frustration being in the Executioners. And as awesome as that experience was, wasn't all bad. But there were things about being in a group that I felt stifled me, right? And Goods, being my best friend, understood that. So the first day that we walked into Power Play Studios to record the Ablist, I told the engineer, I want to just roll tape the whole time and just capture whatever happens in the studio, like have B-roll, so to speak.
Yeah, right.
And Goods, sure enough, was like, that was one of those moments where Goods was like, dude, now it's you. Like, you get to do what you've been wanting to do. And capturing that and being able to talk about it with you now, or just recollect what that felt like, but having it on audio and hearing us talk, fucking, I don't know, it just definitely brings back great memories. And with regards to Grant, I know you can identify with this because I record pretty much all of our training sessions on Skype. And some of those training sessions end up going on YouTube. And like, it's dope of you, Grant, as a student to be okay with that, because I know some people are awkward about making mistakes in front of an audience. So they want people to see the finished product. Right. Yeah. But for me, I've always, and the Ablist proves this, like, I've always been about the process, not necessarily the finished product. It's the process of recording. How did it feel? What happened? How did you grow as you were putting together this composition? And to this day, fast forward, the Ablist came out in 99. I recorded it in 98. Fast forward 22 years, I'm still about the process. And now I'm filming my training sessions with students and posting them for people to see and experience. And for me, that is, I guess, to sum it all up, I'm realizing that, like, the process of being creative, whether it's like with my girlfriend, what we're doing now as Dilbert, our little duo DJ tag team that we have going on, whether it's the process of training a student on Skype or in person. Most people, for example, with regards to teaching, if they have a student, what they'll post is the routine, the final product of that they were teaching their student. And then you see the routine. But I'll post everything that happened before it got to that final product, so that you can see the evolution of the student not knowing how to do what I'm trying to teach them. And then they gradually claw and scratch to get themselves there, and they mess up and they make the mistakes, but they get to the end. I don't know. I just feel weird about just presenting the finished product, because then it gives people the illusion that, like, you just woke up with this ability to do this crazy routine, or you just woke up and bang, put together this classic album or whatever. I just like the process. So yeah, man, that's what that album encompasses, the process of finding myself and finding my voice as a recording artist.
Yeah, man. I think it's a problem with society in general, to be honest. It's a lot of the social media stuff, which is great, but it also presents a very polished image of a lot of celebrities and music and movies, and so people look at it as unattainable. Like, I can never be a musician because of this. I can never be a model because of this. I can never be a singer because of this. And it's like, well, she's got lots of makeup on, that's photoshopped. That album took 3 years to make. That movie, that's auto-tuned so that he doesn't really sound like that. And it's interesting that a lot of people just take that as it is now, because we don't normally see the process. So I think it's very important for people to see the process and understand that you're never as bad as you think you are. You're just on your journey to get there. You don't have to go from there to there. You've got to do the in the middle stuff. So that's important. That's great that you do that and share that. That's brilliant.
It makes the finished product all the more impressive to have access to the process as well. Yeah. I mean, so much of what you just said, Rob, is like very reminiscent of Miles Davis. Like, his attitude. Like, if you go and listen to Bitches Brew, like this, the Ablist, like this record for me, like all the interludes reminded me so much of Miles, during all those tracks on Bitches Brew, just in the background, like, yeah, keep it tight. Keep it tight.
Yep.
Keep it rolling. Keep it tight. It's just, and he left all that in the record, which makes what makes the record so much cooler.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also I wanted to go real back to all that scratching is making me rich, and also like 2 turntables and a keyboard, and
that was hard.
Well,
too.
those 2 in particular. Mm-hmm. You were talking about how you were in the room with the musicians. The 3 of us, all being musicians, like that's the first thing. I think I have actually spoken with you about that track in our lessons. Like I said, I can hear that you're in the room with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And 2 things about that. Like that's the first thing. The second thing was what I thought was really cool is that when you're trading solos with them essentially.
Right.
You go first, which is just a really nice touch because I don't know why. It's probably because thinking of the turntable as a soloing instrument is probably a very foreign thing to a lot of musicians. But the fact that the guitar player, the bass player, the trumpet player, they're playing off the licks that you play with R,
right,
or fresh, or a sample or something.
Right.
That's just, I thought that was a really nice touch to a tune like that. Rather than, I mean, I would expect it to be the other way around, I think is what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I guess there's a confidence that I have about the turntable and its worthiness, and that it can take the lead on a song. And I think that earlier we were talking about like being creative out of anger, right? And that one song, I wasn't necessarily being creative out of executioner anger I felt. It was more anger I felt at the recording industry. By then, a lot of hip hop songs weren't even featuring scratches. Gradually, I would say in the 80s, hip hop really celebrated the DJ. Right. You had songs like The Magnificent Jazzy Jeff, Fresh Prince and Jazzy Jeff, Will Smith. You had Ugly People Be Quiet, a song that Cash Money scratched on, but the rapper on it, a guy named Marvelous, is selling. Cash Money is on his song, and Marvelous is celebrating Cash Money. You had songs like 2-3 Break, Hip Hop on Wax, the original Hip Hop on Wax, featuring Chuck Chill Out. DJs were the focal point of hip hop music. And I feel like in the 90s, that changed and it became about the rapper and the producer. Right. So in that sense, earlier we were talking about like making like a song and it being a big fuck you middle finger to like someone.
Yeah.
I was on that song, I was saying everyone that underappreciates turntablism and doesn't understand that this is an instrument, listen to this, and that's why like I took the lead on that song, and that's why you see me directing everyone, because like I wanted to show people that the turntable should be respected, and it is an instrument, and it may be limited in some ways, like there's certain things that I might not be able to do that a piano player can, but there are things that a piano player can't do that I can't do.
Exactly.
Kind of like what the point of the song was.
Exactly. Do you think what makes the instrument?
Yeah.
Right.
Is its limitations.
I was going to say, do you feel like the DJ title is earned? There's a lot of people who call themselves DJs, and especially as a musician, there's a lot of musicians who DJs are shit, man. They're not fucking musicians, blah, blah, blah. And I think that stems from a lot of DJs and DJs worst. Like you.
Musicians, we're the
if you know
worst
what I mean.
people.
But there's the DJs that have the 2 CDs and just play,
right.
And it auto switches between them, or they use the Mac, and I don't know if you feel that takes away from this message, like what you're saying now, that it when you think of a DJ, a lot of people think of DJs as like something that happens at a wedding. They don't think of it as a legitimate art form.
Yeah, I think, and in the 90s, man, like you gradually over time started to experience hip hop songs being made, and the presence of a DJ was just not there. It went from like, you know, a song like Ugly People Be Quiet, where the rapper has his 3, you know, sections to spit 16-bar rhymes, and then Cash Money was in the chorus, getting busy, complimenting the rhymes and stuff. To you had the early 90s where Dr. Dre put out The Chronic, A Tribe Called Quest released albums like Low End Theory and Midnight Marauders, and it was more about the rhymes and the beats. You still had some scratching in these songs, but the scratching was more of an afterthought throughout these albums. And then by 1996, 1997, you had songs like Hypnotize by Notorious B.I.G., where it was a sampled beat, and sampling comes from what Grandmaster Flash used to do, looping or repeating a break part of a record. But now there was no need for Grandmaster Flash to do it because you had a machine that you could program to sample a beat. And in the chorus, you had your rapper, B.I.G., and then in the chorus, you had like a random chick singing, and there was no scratching. You know, and that bothered me a lot. That really bothered me, and I took offense to that. And so when I put together the Ablist, my whole thing was like, yeah, man, I'm gonna show people that turntables could stand alone. And as much as I respect the art of rapping, and as much as I respect producing, I'm gonna take a completely different approach to these elements of hip hop, because it's being done in a way that's making the DJ take a back seat, and I just don't appreciate that, you know? So, yeah, man.
I dig all of that, man, and you know, I definitely wanna highlight one of your tracks on here. I believe it was the last one. I love. Wait, no, actually, it's Black Music.
Okay.
Yeah, Black Music was dope. There was one line in there where was that you rapping, or was that somebody else rapping? Or
that was Good Time rapping.
Okay, so there's a line in there where he said like Woods of Maryland, and I was like, because I'm from DC, but I actually live in Maryland, so I was like, I kind of chuckled at it. I was like, oh snap, that's what's up, you know, because it's like, you know, a lot of people from the city or from like certain parts of Maryland, or certain parts outside of Maryland, they think that when they come to Maryland, it's just nothing but just country and just woods, you know what I'm saying? Especially like up on Marlboro, Maryland, Prince George's County, Maryland and stuff. So I always laugh, man, because people from New York, y'all come down here and y'all like, man, I feel like I'm in the South, and it's like, man.
Anything past New Jersey to us is the South.
Yeah, bro. And I'm like, I always chuckle at that because I'm like, man, you know, we got some city life, you know what I'm saying? Like, not as much as you guys, but we got something. But you know, but I love this sample in there, man, where you're like, Rob Swift, Nobody's Equal or something like that. I was like, man, that is hard, bro. It was so dope. So I wanted to ask you about how do you like what's your process in finding samples to put into your music, and where to like place them and everything like that? I know that's like a very broad, you know, question, but man, like I got to tip my hat off, man, because I always wanted to figure out how does a DJ go about finding his samples, making that the hook, you know, and just kind of going for that, you know what I'm saying?
Man, my brain is like a encyclopedia of just sounds and phrases and words. And I mean, people to this day will hire me to do scratches for a song that they're working on. And within seconds of me listening to what I'm going to scratch on, ideas just start flowing in my head. But I've just been around music for so long, and thanks to people like my brother that would sit me down and play, you know, all kind of music from different genres, jazz, obviously hip hop, rock, and me being such a fan of music that like there's just so many different things stored in my head. So if I'm putting together a song, or if I'm working on scratches for someone, within seconds, my brain just starts to kind of access like, okay, this song has this word. Do you own it? Oh yeah, you do. If you look at this crate, in the middle section of that crate, you'll find that record. Like my brain just works in this really interesting way regarding samples.
That's crazy.
Or if there's a sample, thank God for technology now. Like if there's something that I want to use that I know I don't have at home, you know, I know that I could find it in the internet. You know what I mean? So my brain, dude, is just like a wealth of information regarding samples and words and beats and bass lines and eerie noises. A lot of times, like before I even put together a song, the song is sort of complete in my head. And then I find the samples that kind of like help bring out what I hear already being finished in my mind. So yeah, finding samples is not an issue for me. There's just a ease I have with it that it's really hard to explain. But I think it's like a lot of that has to do with like all the years of just listening to music. And whereas today I feel like a lot of people, for example, that DJ, they DJ to land the residency at the club or at the bar, and they want to keep the residency, so they only research music that's popular, right? So, you know, they download whatever top 40 music they need to play at this specific venue. But I didn't grow up listening to music with that kind of pressure. Like when I would get hired by friends to DJ birthday parties, I had freedom. So although popular artists like Michael Jackson existed back in the day, I feel like you would trust the DJ more, and you would kind of let the DJ take you on a journey. So because of that, as a DJ, you would just expose yourself to all kind of music, because you wanted to also play music that people like, but B, introduce people to new music.
Exactly.
And so because I had that freedom, and I was constantly trying to educate myself on music, now like I just have like, my brain is just like, that's probably why I have such a big head. Like all kind of like music stored, and sounds and words and phrases stored in my head.
Man, when you said that, just to tap onto that, when do you think that changed? Because that is something from traveling the world as a musician, and obviously we met on cruise ships, but I lived in the Middle East and did different things, seen a lot of DJs. Like you're saying, the vast majority are playing the same stuff.
Yes.
And it must come from the culture that people now just want. If you don't get what you want straight away, like talking about the process before, it's a similar mentality. It's like, I want this straight away. I'm not happy straight away. I want to speak to the manager, or the Karen as well. And DJs are like, they don't get the freedom.
It's sad, man. And they're not really experiencing DJing in its purest form. Because really the true responsibility of a DJ is to expose people to music.
Yeah, exactly. New music, definitely. Yeah.
New music. That's really the true point behind DJing, is you're putting people up on music. Like, check this tune now. It's really dope. Now I'm gonna play this for you.
Yeah.
That's really the true purpose of what DJing is. And back in the day we used to call it breaking music. You would break new music. And then, because of you playing this song, this obscure song that no one knows, now you're introducing people to a new artist. And then what ends up happening is that artist blows up and goes on to have a career.
Yeah.
but it's kind of backwards now. Now it's like the DJs are being told what to play. And as a result, you're not really exercising your taste or developing any kind of like voice or style. And you're just this robot, you know, like a jukebox, you know, that whole generic example, you know, that we use, you know, you just kind of like, you become this like iPod shuffler, and you're going through music that you know people want to hear, but by no means are you experiencing an exchange of energy between you and the people. It's more so, well, just play this song that I listened to riding my car on the way over here, you know? So I'm lucky that I grew up in the era that I did, because I had a lot more freedom, and you know, we proved ourselves by being able to play music that people may have not necessarily been up on, but still capture or control their attention, you know, and getting people to physically move on the dance floor, and keep it there. I'd rather be able to do that with my own musical taste, opposed to just playing a song that obviously they like, and obviously, you know what I mean? There's no challenge in that.
Thank you all for tuning in to Bones, Twigs, and Wigs podcast. Make sure you guys stay tuned for episode 2, coming very soon.